Ladies and gentlemen, may I present to you the morning meeting. This is the 10th episode for Dan, so it's a special anniversary clip show. We'll just be showing highlights from the past 9 episodes. Welcome. Thank you, Sean. And Dan and I are delighted to have you here. If you're watching on YouTube, welcome. Peace, love, and understanding. If you decide you want to write in the chat, presumption of grace. And here on the two-way platform, again, welcome in. We're here to learn. This is not a pro-Trump or anti-Trump, pro-Harris, anti-Harris platform. It's for everybody to learn and understand and try to get along. And I will tell you, I'm going to emphasize that today because people are getting freaked out, particularly Democrats, for a variety of reasons. It's in their DNA, and the polling has not been great for them. But people are freaking out, and I understand it. We talk about politics here in kind of a clinical way sometimes, but make no mistake, all three of us are extremely aware of the emotions involved, of the stakes involved, of how strongly many of you feel about this election. And we don't make light of that or minimize it, but we also are trying to be a place, one of the few in America, where everybody can come together and try to deal with this day by day in a way that can be unifying for America. So with that, what's going on? The candidates are out and about today, as we say, in battleground states. The vice president, after her town hall last night, which we'll look at a little bit, is in Arizona. She's doing a 12:45 Eastern time briefing with the president, virtual briefing that's closed press. She's attending virtually. Then at 1:15 p.m., she is attending virtually an update from FEMA that will have a pool spray. Then at 1:40 p.m., she's delivering remarks during a virtual campaign event. I don't know what that is, but it's open to the pool, so we'll all get to find out. Then 2:40 p.m. Eastern time, she's delivering remarks in Scottsdale, and then she flies back to D.C. after long last. So that's a big Arizona day for her. Donald Trump has a sold-out rally in Aurora, Colorado. Trump is emphasizing immigration a lot in the closing days of the campaign. Shouldn't be a surprise to anyone, but that'll be a big focus of those remarks. And then that is at 3 Eastern, and then at 8:30 Eastern, he's got a rally in Reno. Tim Walz is doing a bunch of stuff in Michigan, and then he's doing this football thing in Minnesota. It's something called the Jug Game. I urge you to read about that in my Substack. It sounds pretty interesting. Don't know what J.D. Vance is doing. All right, let's look at some other stuff. Wall Street Journal this morning popped some battleground state polls. Let's look at them together, shall we? All right. So Trump up in Arizona, up in Georgia, up in Michigan, high North Carolina. Trump up large size in the Silver State. Trump up 1 in Pennsylvania, tied in Wisconsin. All margin of error stuff, right? Here's something that's going on in the polling now, which we've kind of talked around, but we haven't hit it as hard as I'm about to. Trump is overperforming in the Rust Belt, but he's underperforming in the Sun Belt. And this is the best news for Kamala Harris right now in terms of the only thing that really matters, the Electoral College, which is she's got multiple paths now, right? She's got some Sun Belt paths. She can't be shut out in the Rust Belt. Next slide, please, to look at the Journal on issues. And the Journal poll tells a story we've been living with for weeks now. Trump is doing better on issues that are most important to people, particularly the economy and immigration. But Harris is still right in the fight because she's strong on some other secondary and tertiary issues, and abortion rights is important. And they don't like Trump's personality and all those issues, January 6th, etc. All right, guys, John, what is your view of the Journal poll and polling currently?
Of the Journal poll, I don't think it's a surprise in that the issues that we thought made sense still make sense. Immigration, economy are still the top issues, and we've known that. And then we've also known that these states are largely within the margin of error, but we felt I'm still a little skeptical of the Sun Belt issue. I was surprised to see Trump doing better in North Carolina because of concerns I have about the polling in North Carolina. But that being said, nothing that I saw shocked me. I was out last night there was a big Trump alumni event for Trump last night. Chris LaCivita came in, spoke to it, and he was just the mood about the internal polls. He was willing to share them. I mean, this kind of harkens back to what we were talking about yesterday. Generally, you don't get into details. He was telling a story about how Trump called up in the morning. He was giddy about some of the internals and really wanted to get the word out. That type of enthusiasm doesn't happen when you're on your heels, right? You don't get up and start saying, let me tell everybody what we're seeing inside. Just when I've been part of winning campaigns and losing campaigns over the last 30 years. Like last night, people were lining up to pay to come in. I mean, the excitement among Republicans is that the wind is at our back right now. And I think that's a good thing. And I know the polls are a little close and that's why, but the momentum's with Team Trump right now. And that's a good place to be 25 days out.
Yeah, Dan, your experience yesterday and this morning is the mirror image of that, right?
Yes, exactly. I think the Wall Street Journal poll is good news for Democrats in that it'll calm some public chatter, right? As this increasing, kind of she's behind. As you say, you read it, it's close everywhere. I think, as we discussed here the last few days, the trend lines in the Midwest are very concerning. Conversely, Trump has not pulled away in the Sun Belt. It is not 4, 5, and 6 point leads. Nevada here, says is greater, but I don't think either campaign really believes Nevada is a 6 or 7 point, Trump lead. So the good news is you're still within striking distance. The problem is, I think internally, like within most Democrats' guts, if it comes down to we have to win all 4 Sun Belts or 3 out of the 4 Sun Belts, that makes them nervous. They're not quite sure that she can pull it out. Sean, it's ironic that you were in DC at a Trump event. I called around in DC last night to friends to kind of stress test what we've been discussing, to be like, am I missing something? And they were all like, no, you're not. And actually, where some of the Democratic anxiety is coming from, I was told, is that the Senate candidates in DC, the staff and others, Congress is not in session, so staff is kind of around town, they're taking long lunches, etc. The Senate candidates are saying she has a huge problem in the Midwest. And that is where, as much as Wilmington is trying to put the lid on it to say, okay, we've stalled, but we're tied, it is the Senate candidates who are doing their own polling, the DSCC and others, that are putting word out, because again, all politics is local, there is a problem in the Midwest.
Well, so the fundamental issue is this, and just here's the way I perceive this. We've used the term before. I think there was a sense of Kamala curious. After the convention, she got moved in. She hasn't closed the deal. And at the end of the day, people are saying, all right, I was hoping to give her a chance. I'm not sure I really wanted Trump, but I care about the economy. I'm worried about immigration. I'm worried about inflation, whatever it is, interest rates. And I know what I'm getting with Trump, so I'm just going to fall. Like they're going to fall for him at the end if she can't close the deal, and she's not closing the deal.
Yeah, at least not yet. So just to be clear or something, which I think I was clear about, but when I've reported over the last several days about private polling, that is not Republican-only private polling. It is, as Dan said, it's reflected in the Democratic private polling too. In fact, I think if you ask the Harris campaign and they would tell you about their polling, you'd hear a similar story. This is not spin by Republicans about secret or fake polls. This is what is happening in the data. And as we've said repeatedly, the public and private data differs. The public data is cheap and has issues in almost every case. It's just the nature of the beast now for academic and media organizations. Not everyone, but most. So Nate Silver, who I don't believe has ever covered a presidential campaign and is good at averaging numbers, did a long piece making the case that, in fact, the public polls are better than the private polls, and that the extent that people talk about private polls, it's all made up spin that's done to trick reporters and please clients. So, guys, is Nate Silver right?
No.
Can I just tell you, can I say one fundamental thing that I want people to understand? Whether you're doing a public poll or you're the most partisan private poller, no professional pollster will ever skew a poll. They might ask certain questions. And again, largely it's client based. So the client will say, I want you to test this, or I want you to test this, or I want to change the screen on this. But a pollster is like any other professional. You will not undermine your credibility and your professionalism and last. I'm not saying no one's ever done it, but you won't sustain your credibility in the industry if you throw yourself under the bus. And so sometimes people will say, well, that's from, pick McLaughlin or Public Opinion Strategies or Terrence. These are all Republican pollsters. And so I don't trust. These guys are top-notch pros. And they're never going to undermine their credibility for the sake of a headline or a story. And I want people to understand that. And the same's true on the Democratic side. Celinda Lake and all these guys, they're good at what they do, and they would never throw away their credibility.
And just as they would not throw away their credibility, I am not taking some pollster I've never heard of and saying here's their numbers. I'm relying on people who I've known and covered for years, and I know that they have the exact same the professionalism that you described. Right. So that's different than what Nate Silver's talking about.
Right. No. And I'm saying this because, but I want people to understand who what we're talking about. No one is going to do that. But I'm reading some of the chat. We talked about this yesterday. The mainstream guys will take the cheapest route, right? Which is going to get you the not the best result most of the time. And we've talked about this ad nauseum. The private guys are using this to make $1 million decisions. There is no way public polling is better. It defies logic.
Well, and that's the thing I was going to say is if you're a candidate running for office, you want the best numbers. It is your job. You want to win.
Right.
So you seek out people, and they are being paid to give honest results, to make decisions, to win elections. They're not sitting there, skewing everything to make, to have happy talk internally. That's how pollsters ruin the reputation and get fired. They are better because this is what they do for a living, and the candidates are seeking out the best to win elections.
And just to be clear, as a reporter, when someone offers me information, I don't usually say, why are you telling me? Why are they telling me? And others, they're telling me because they're human beings. And they're like, oh my fucking God, Trump might win. And they're also interested in sending a message to the Harris campaign. Guys, you have a problem and you're not listening to us. So we're going to tell some people in the press. And they don't want to be blamed if their Senate candidate loses. They want to be able to blame the Wilmington. That's some of the potential motivations. It's not make up numbers and trick Mark Halperin and others. Okay. Now, Kamala Harris, in addition to doing a Univision town hall where she was asked a question about, for the first time really in this way, by a voter about Joe Biden having the nomination taken away from him. Also on the cover of Vogue 106, please. Annie Leibovitz. So Sean,
I think Donald Trump.
How many times? What's the scorecard between Melania Trump and Kamala Harris on Vogue covers? Is this her first for Kamala Harris? Anybody know?
I will say this. I have to I'm going to be straight. I got to admit, I let my subscription to Vogue. I asked for a new, for the renewal for Christmas. We'll see what happens. All right. But I would say that at the very least, it's 1-0 right now. Yeah. By the way, speaking of scorecards, I'm just, as someone who can't help but watch the chat, apparently you are on the score. You are now multiple times in the swear jar. So just telling you the chat's very clear, Mark. Let's throw some cash in there.
Just to be clear, I was quoting a fictional Democratic operative. That wasn't coming out of my mouth. If it's in quotes, it doesn't.
The rules are clear. Rules are clear. It doesn't matter.
If I quoted Joe Biden or John McCain saying "fucking," that's a quote.
More money.
All right. Lori Blackford, our colleague, says there's nothing significant in the Vogue article, so we don't need to talk about it except the cover is awesome. Let's play, please, Kamala Harris from her town hall last night, 104.
President Biden made a decision that I think history will show was probably one of the most courageous that a president could make, which is he decided to put country above his personal interest. And he made that decision. He within that same period of time, supported my candidacy and urged me to run. He and I have been partners for the last 4 years as his vice president to him as the president. And I am honored to have earned the Democratic nomination. I am honored to have the endorsement of people from every walk of life, you will probably find that I probably have a bigger coalition of people who couldn't seem to be more different than each other, who have come together around my candidacy.
So I would say that's the greatest answer ever. But overall, I thought she did quite well last night. And I think those who wanted to do more town halls would be encouraged to say, yeah, you can go do it. If this were a 5-hour show, we'd play more of the town hall. We'd also play Trump's epic speech at the Detroit Economic Club, which had, besides a reference to Little Rocket Man, a lot of interesting things. But we don't have time for that because we got to play Barack Obama. But guys, what did you think of the town hall and of that answer?
I got my rally towel out here. Do more of those. I thought she relaxed. She was passionate.
Yeah, I agree.
Look, I mean, in fairness to her, she's not going to say he was too old and Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, and Barack Obama, took the knife to him, right? Like, that's what we would all like her to say. That is not going to happen. But, she pivoted. Man, I just do more of those. Go to Philadelphia. Go to Detroit. Do them.
Yeah, do them. Sean, agree?
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm not as I think that, just to be clear what I'm saying here, she has nothing to lose at this point. So I feel like you might as well, but I was not as impressed. So it's not like I think she did better, but that's not a hard bar to cross. So I just
better's better. All right, last topic, and then we're going to go to your questions. Again, please put your hand up. We like news people, as always. So if you've never been part of speaking on the platform, raise your hand. Get in on this. Barack Obama gave a speech. We're going to show a little bit of that. He also talked to a group of young black men and was quite direct in calling out their lack of enthusiasm for Kamala Harris. But let's listen to 103 from his Pittsburgh rally.
If Donald Trump does not care that a mob might attack his own vice president, do you think he cares about you? Pennsylvania, we do not need 4 more years of that. We don't need 4 more years of arrogance and bumbling and bluster and division. America's ready to turn the page. We are ready for a better story, one that helps us work together instead of turning against each other.
So Joe Biden had a problem.
We need to turn the page. The last 4 years have been bumbling. Finally, I agree with Obama.
Joe Biden had a huge problem with young black men. Kamala Harris has a huge problem, maybe a bigger one. And wait till the Trump campaign and their allies start doing targeted communicating about her record as a prosecutor. They're up against it. They have to do better. I think it's smart for Barack Obama to be so direct and pedantic, as Dan said to me earlier today, because he has to get attention for this. They need earned media. It's the only way to do it. I think he's got to do it. Sean,
the clip that he played or the statement that he made subsequently, you're coming up with all kinds of reasons and excuses. I've got a problem with that because part of it makes me think, and I'm speaking to men directly, that if you just aren't feeling the idea of having a woman as president and you're coming up with other alternatives and reasons for that, I felt like you want to lecture dudes and tell them that that's the issue. It's not a female problem, right? And I think that that's a crutch. It's like, oh, you're not voting for her because she's a woman. It's not. I don't think that's the way to address men if you have a men problem. And then the Kamala Harris yesterday, they said they're sending out Tim Walz to make this. I mean, again, I'm like, if that's how you guys think you're going to get more men, God bless you. Because this is a completely stupid strategy when it comes to attracting men. But
yeah, I think the clip you played of Obama was excellent, right? Like he was passionate, he's into it. But to Sean's point, when he is Professor Obama, right? Well, people cling to their guns. That's why they vote a certain way. It is so patronizing. And I mentioned yesterday the 2016 CBC. Alexander came on the other day and said the one thing he really hates is when you're basically saying like almost what's the matter with Kansas, right? Like you don't know what's in your interest. The only reason that you could possibly be doing it is because she's a woman. When everything screams, they're doing it because of the economy, right?
Yeah. If there weren't,
Trump gives them a better opportunity.
Okay. Yeah.
So, I mean, I get what he's trying to do. To your point, Mark, he's definitely shaking the trees, but I don't think that's the best way to
Well,
persuade them to change their mind.
If this weren't occurring after weeks, nay, months of failure to get this group back on their side, then I would say, yeah, bad idea. But they have to shake it. They have to shake it hard.
Yeah,
They
but
have
I
to
mean,
break
telling
through here.
somebody
Shaking,
that you're
it's how
too
you're
dumb to
shaking.
vote for your interest is not the best way to wake somebody up and get. I mean, you could say his economy is like, if you want to just trash Trump, but don't sit there and say to people, basically, you don't realize what's in your self-interest, so I'm going to tell you what's. Nobody likes to be talked to like that.
I normally would agree with you. I disagree now. Look, right now, one way to look at the race and to get an understanding that Democrats see their problems is they're playing defense with their constituencies. Trump's not really playing defense. Trump's not out there on abortion or, guns. He's not really. And when people say immigration is a base issue, it's the biggest misunderstanding of Donald Trump's political success. Immigration is not a base issue. So they've got to deal with this. The votes of young black men could decide this election, and they got to do something different. Maybe you're right. This isn't it, but I like Professor Obama in emergency situations. Yeah,
I have like four ideas, but I'm going to keep my mouth shut because I don't need to be giving them help right now.
Well, let me just add this though, Mark. One of the best communicators to working class people in the party is Bill Clinton, and I cannot see Bill Clinton speaking to people like that.
Yeah, well, he's going out too, but he's doing rural, right? He's doing rural. Obama's doing urban.
Bill Clinton respects people too much.
Yeah. All right. Welcome in, Suzanne. Incredible backdrop. Is that a real backdrop or is that virtual?
No, that's the view from my windows here in Western North Carolina.
Wow.
And
all right, well,
I'm kind of a
yeah, sorry, Suzanne, tell people who don't know who you're supporting and tell us more specifically where you are and what your experience has been like lately.
Okay. I am a Liz Cheney Republican. I voted for Nikki Haley in the primary. I am a never Trumper. I feel he is a danger to the world.
Who'd you vote for president in 16 and 20?
Anybody other than Trump.
So you voted for Clinton and Biden, or you wrote in somebody else?
No, I voted for
Clinton and Biden.
I held my nose. I have never liked the Clintons, but
all right, let's go to the acid test. Who are you voting for in the governor's race?
Oh, Stein. He's gonna win. Yeah, for sure.
Okay, all right. But otherwise you vote Republican normally?
Oh yeah, I've been a lifelong Republican, but then when Trump came along, I changed my voter registration to independent. I voted in every election since I was a kid, and since I was old enough. And as you can see, I went to the University of Michigan, and I lived in Colorado before I moved to North Carolina a year and a half ago. And I live in a very rural part of North Carolina. It's Allegheny County. So we didn't get the direct hit that Asheville got. We're about an hour and a half away northeast of them. But we did get a lot of damage. And regarding FEMA, actually, and maybe it's because this is such a rural area, everything is done locally by friends and neighbors. I mean, yesterday, the woman who delivers my mail sent two guys who live 5 miles away from here over to my house to cut up the trees that had fallen in my backyard for free. And the churches, immediately, the churches were giving out meals. The fire department was distributing food. So everything is done by our local community. And it's a great, great feeling. But
is Asheville the biggest city near you? Sparta
is. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Asheville is like going to New York City compared to where I live. No,
what are you hearing from folks? What are you hearing from folks? Yeah. So what are you hearing from folks who are more affected in terms of their feelings about recovery, which obviously is a bigger scale than local people can do themselves?
It's terrible, but I just want to say regarding FEMA, I signed up because I had some minor damage to my home, and I went to the FEMA website and signed up. I immediately received a response, and I even stated that I had minor damage. And within 24 hours, they said, here, if you want to go stay in a hotel, just do this. And I received another update today. So FEMA has been incredibly responsive. And while we were standing in the yard with the guys cutting the trees yesterday, a big plane flew by, and the guy said it was a C-130. Is that what that's called? It's a, taking
transport plane.
Yeah, supplies. So, and so I'm wearing my Michigan sweatshirt today in support of Donald Trump's basically calling, Detroit a horrible place, comparing it to China. And, this is like Donald Trump's MO, is he goes to a place and tells everybody how terrible it is there. And I mean, I went to Michigan in the 80s and late 70s, early 80s. And Detroit has had problems forever. And Donald Trump was president before. And so he hasn't done anything to help these cities. And, we talk about how important, he always talks about the border. Well, in 2016, Donald Trump's had two campaign promises. I will build a wall and I'll repeal and replace Obamacare. He did neither one. He failed. His border policy was essentially the equivalent of closing the door. Unfortunately, he didn't have a legislative solution. So when Biden came into office, Biden just opened the door. I mean, it was like literally 24 hours. So unless Trump is going to be Methuselah and live forever, he's not offering permanent solutions. When he faced
Suzanne, I'm sorry. Go ahead, finish the thought.
I just two quick things, please. I know this is a rant, but I watch every day, twice a day. I'm a faithful supporter. And just very quickly, when he faced the pandemic, he lied about it for a month. And the point is, Trump's lies hurt people. And people say, oh, well, it's his policies are great. But his policies are not great. His policies are paper tigers. And I'm doing better under Biden than I did under Trump. My house is worth more. My 401k is worth more. My prescription drug cost when I retire in a few years will be lower. And you know
Suzanne,
what?
Suzanne, I always hate to interrupt people, and I'm enjoying listening to everything you say, but we want to get other folks in. So if you have a short second point or a question, we'd love to hear it.
Okay, my short second question is for Sean. And that is, A, do you think Trump is actually going to deport 15 million people? The answer, of course, is no, because logistically it's possible. And B, and this is more of a serious question, after Trump hands Ukraine over to Putin, which he's already tried to do a couple times, is Trump going to honor NATO's Article 5 when Putin goes into the Balkans? Because actually, talking about NATO is stronger by two countries.
Hold on, Suzanne.
Okay,
you asked Sean that's okay. You asked Sean two very loaded questions.
Yes.
I'll warn our affiliates, we're going to run a bit over. Sean, I'd ask you to just that's okay. Sean, I'd love for you to give brief answers because I want to get some more folks in.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Two quick points at the top as well. I'm heartwarmed by how your community's response. That's as a Republican and a conservative, I love the idea of local people, churches,
Amen.
Helping people. We've become too reliant on government, and that's an amazing response, and I hope more of America can hear that. I also appreciated your comment about Biden opening the door on the border. Thank God bless you for that. Real quick, before I forget this point, do you have a problem voting? Like, is your municipality able to handle? No, so you'll be able to vote. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I wanted to make sure we got that out. So the first question you asked was about deporting people. I think that I've said this before when asked, we are a nation of laws. If you're going to decide which laws we get to follow and which laws we don't, then we aren't a nation of laws anymore. And I hope that President Trump puts into place policies immediately which will respect the rule of law. We have a broken immigration system. I hope that we can fix it. But until then, it doesn't give you the right to enter a country that is based on a rule of law because you want to. So I hope that we create a system that respects that and addresses that immediately, because we end up, every time that we give amnesty to folks, we basically undermine our rule of law and say, well, not for you. And we hurt the people that did it legally and correctly. Even our guest yesterday from Venezuela, that if you do it right, you shouldn't feel like you're going to get screwed because a bunch of people undermine the system. The last question I would tell you on NATO is, for those people, the short answer is yes, absolutely, Trump will respect NATO. But here's the thing that people get so wrong on NATO. The bargain was it was a two-way street. We will, under Article 5, everybody's all in. If an attack on one is an attack on all. But for too long, Europe took advantage of the United States and treated us horribly. We were willing to pay the bill. We were willing to protect everybody. And they weren't willing to put and invest in their own defenses, which was the proposition of NATO. We'll all build up together. We'll all be a giant force for good. And for too long, Europe said, great, we'll spend all of our money on other things in our country because we know the United States will take care of us if something comes in. Trump said, you know what? No more. And Jens Stoltenberg himself said that because of Donald Trump's actions, European countries, more than ever before, were finally putting into their own defenses what they had agreed to. But an agreement where one party covers the whole deal is not a good deal for the United States. And I'm glad that Europe is finally at least starting to agree to what they had bought into. It's in their interest. Why are we the ones carrying the burden for Europe's defenses? So I applaud what Donald Trump did on NATO. I think he will adhere to it, but it's a two-way street, not a one-way.
But don't you think Biden did more to strengthen NATO by bringing in Sweden and Finland?
No. I mean, fine,
Yes.
if they want to adhere to it, but I think that before you bring in more people, you might want to make the ones that are in the deal actually adhere to what they agreed to. Why is Germany shirking their responsibilities? Yes, they're doing more, or they were. But why are we allowing others? We're basically saying, hey, let's increase the membership of slackers before we make the ones that are part of the organization strong. I actually would caution you.
You two take this in a sub room, we're the sub NATO room.
Thank you,
Suzanne,
guys.
Suzanne, thank you for joining. We hope everything continues to get well. We hope Asheville rebuilds so you have somewhere to go to buy Belgian endive or whatever it is that you're able to get on the Asheville. Thank you. And Mark Love. And thank you for joining twice a day. Tell all your friends. All right, David, welcome in. Tell folks who don't know where you are, who you're supporting for president, and what's on your mind, please.
Well, I'm from South Portland, Maine. So I don't, I'm rather unenthused about both of these people. And I don't want to go on a polemic about why I think, they each have their own flaws and problems. I'd like to talk about this CBS thing because I'm sort of a casual observer of this time. I feel like I've had enough conversations with my children that I've concluded that the world is theirs to fix. I really, middle-aged and older white men really don't have much insight into what's going on, and I kind of see the problems as a bit insoluble.
All right, David, before you go to CBS, I want to be the first to say that you look and sound a lot like Bob Casey. Has anybody ever told you that?
I have to tell, no one's ever told me that. I had one person tell me I sound like John Malkovich, and I didn't know whether to take that as a compliment or not.
There's a little bit of that too. we're gonna on tomorrow's episode. I hope to splice you together with some Bob Casey. But please,
well,
sorry to interrupt.
Thanks so much.
Sorry
I must say that I came close to voting Democrat because I'm a University of Rochester graduate, and that would have been enough.
Did you vote for president? Did you vote for president? Did you vote for president in 16 and 20?
I did.
Who'd you vote for in 16?
I voted for a major party candidate. It was 2008. I voted for Barack Obama.
Okay. All right.
You're in CD1,
elections,
right?
I was libertarian.
You live in Maine 1, not Maine 2, right?
Pardon me?
You're in the
You live in Maine 1, not Maine 2.
Yeah.
Okay. David, your CBS question, please.
CBS question is, I've been a lawyer for 35 years, and you would have lost a jury trial if you put on that kind of splicing together of question and answer. I found it an abomination. And it isn't that, I mean, is this just what they do all the time? Are we watching
Yes, they do it. They do it all the time, and they did it not to help her. They did it because it's better television. They do it all the time. And
yeah, I wasn't suspecting a bias. I think they're beyond bias.
Yeah,
I think media is just about clicks.
Yeah. I'll tell you that in documentaries, they do it to a criminal degree. Okay. If you're a serious television producer and you make edits like that, you do it in a way that's true to the spirit and substance of what they said. And I will say that in this case, it was true in the spirit of substance of what you said. It was cleaner.
It was certainly cleaner, but don't go ahead and produce and publish 2 drafts of the same documentary. I mean, let's give us the ability to have plausible belief that you're actually presenting the candidate as the candidate is. Because one of the real problems in this election is I watched the first presidential debate between Harris and Trump. And it was like watching Clarence Darrow. I've never seen a candidate as clear and prepared. I mean, I've not seen an inkling of that Kamala Harris in any other setting that I've watched her. Yeah. And that's why in this case, it's very important to me to see the real article, not to see.
So, Counselor, let me ask you a question, Counselor. Do you ever quote, lawyers ever quote from depositions in legal filings?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, so if you did a 400-page deposition, and then you were quoting in a brief to the judge, are you obligated to include the 400 pages? No.
Oh, you're not.
You're not.
But if you want to have credibility with the judge, you're gonna present the best and worst and explain. One of the real problems with litigation that I've seen in lawyers is that they allow the other side to get the gotcha moment by counter-proposing facts. Listen, you're not under any obligation as an advocate to quote the lousy passages.
Okay. Let's say I'm a newspaper reporter and I'm interviewing you about your 200 favorite meals you've ever had. Okay, and then I'm writing a story about David Bertoni's favorite meals. Am I obligated to publish all 200?
No, but Mark, I think people. But hold on. There's a difference, though. I'll jump in on the counselor. If you look at the interaction, a reporter, when I read a thing, I go, okay, that's a quote, and I understand that they probably said more. But when you're watching a video interaction, and I ask you a question, and then you jump cut it and create the impression that that was the answer they give, it is.
Okay. But I understand exactly what you're saying, and I can say it happens every day in every edited television piece and documentary. If you want to say that should never happen, then you're going to have to figure out a way to reinvent the medium. But don't single out CBS and 60 Minutes for doing it. Well, it's not just because they're horrible. It's the way production works.
I guess my point is not that it's a unique occurrence. It's that we now have a moment when it's been laid bare. We have a moment when a network has effectively shown its cards in a way that was foolish and idiotic, but at least it's placed front and center for the public to see and maybe learn for the first time, because not everybody understands that this manipulation goes on.
Yeah, you're right.
Documentaries are front and center in this.
Yeah, this is part of the problem when you don't give a lot of interviews. Every time now she steps out, everybody's picking apart the process, everything, because there's so little content.
I think that's right, and I think that's why town halls are a great idea. I mean, that lets you get to see someone actually without an editor in between. Live interviews would be great also.
I also think
because the flip side to this is, Trump does so much. He speaks so frequently. Right, I'm watching the chat and X. Right, people want us to focus on every lie he tells or every verbal bumble that he has, but because he speaks so frequently, we don't focus on that stuff as much anymore. Right, so it is the opposite that she is now facing, and on some level, she's earned it because she's been so guarded in how she presents. Because when Trump's on podcasts edit stuff all the time.
Yep, that's
All the
true.
time.
I would just say this. I think there's two issues that I have a concern with, and what CBS did. Americans want to know more about her positions, why she flip-flopped. In fact, Bill Whitaker asked her about that. And then they present her in a way that is much more coherent and concise with her policy positions. So they were clearly trying to present her in a way that is juxtaposed to the concerns that Americans have in a very positive way. That's number one. Number two is, if a campaign did an ad the way that they conducted that interview, they would do a story about how that campaign edited the piece in the interview. And so the hypocrisy that exists throughout the media, Mark's right, they all do it, but the hypocrisy that exists throughout all of them is so rampant. It's unbelievable. They are so high and mighty in how they do their job and how they'll criticize anyone else. I think that all of them are horrible.
Yeah. David, I want to ask you two questions. Number one, how'd you find out about the morning meeting?
I found out about you months and months ago. It was just looking around YouTube.
Yeah. Okay.
I find that YouTube is my principal source of entertainment now.
Yeah. Yeah. And last question is, I know you don't like either of the major party presidential candidates. If you just sort of close your eyes and imagine one of them winning, which one is less offensive to you? Which one do you hope wins in the end?
Oh, it's a hard one.
And
it's
why?
a really hard one. At the end of the day, I think I'd be more comfortable with a world in which we have a 4-year hello and goodbye to Donald Trump than to have an unknown quantity. I think Kamala Harris, to me, is a dramatic unknown quantity. And I cannot get my arms around what she thinks, how she thinks, and how she'd interact with foreign leaders. And I've heard if she was a legitimately independent new voice, she would be able to talk about ways in which she differs from Joe Biden, but she can't or won't. And that's where the real nuance is. I don't want 4 more years of Biden. I mean, I've watched what it's done to the state of Maine. I want someone who's got progressive values, but they have to be articulate and able to aggressively tell us who they are and why they're running. I get this mealy mouth. It sounds like the old George Bush line about the way she's going to help the middle class. It's just this sort of mushy talk. I need a sharp.
Yeah. How old are your kids, David? How old are your kids?
32 and 34.
Who are they voting for?
They would never vote for Donald Trump to save their lives. My son went to a European university and came home hating the Western culture. So he's sort of a little bit difficult to reach, but I think that they view some issues that, as more important than I do.
Right.
But I think that there's no chance that either of them would vote Republican.
All right. David, thank you for joining. Please come back regularly. Enjoyed having you here. Our man, Mitch. Mitch, welcome in. Tell folks where you are, who you're supporting, where you got
I'm in
that great
Indiana,
jacket,
so thank you. Yeah. Thank you for the My Man Mitch reference to Mitch Daniels.
Yes, sir.
Who I wish had run for president.
Best university president of the last 100 years.
Absolutely.
All right. Mitch, what's on your mind? First of all, who are you supporting for president?
Well, I've never revealed who I'm voting for. I will tell you, I've been an elector, an alternate elector. I've been a delegate, an alternate delegate.
For which party?
Republican.
Yeah.
In those years, the Republican candidate for president has never won. So I must say I'm not serving in any of those positions this year. So Donald Trump is eligible to win, according to my jinxing of elections.
Mitch, make a little news here and reveal for the first time ever who you're voting for.
I'm in Indiana. Does it make any difference? Donald Trump's going to win going away here. I am
interested because the winner of the national popular vote is going to be important. Symbolically. All right, Mitch, you don't want to tell us.
No, I'm going to go on, but I do. I see that Mr. Utterback from Northwest Indiana is on. He was on the other day. I thought he did a good job. I'm interested in how he's going to vote for governor, because we may or may not have a race. I still expect Senator Braun's going to win the governorship, but it's tightening, and the Democrat Party is pumping some money in here.
What about the bank's coattails? The bank's coattails are long and broad.
Jim is not, and I've known Jim well for quite a while, but he didn't have a competitive Senate primary. I'm not sure he's known to the rest of the state. I'm not sure he's known to the rest of the state.
He's breaking the all-time record for the easiest path to winning a Senate seat. The guy did nothing.
It seems similar to me to Barack Obama's winning his Senate seat when he eliminated the competition.
Oh, he had a very tough primary.
He had like a 5-way primary. Jim Beggs, who I know and like too. Jim Beggs is just basically like, I'll take that. He's done nothing. And I'm not being critical. Good for him. Good for him. All right, Mitch, ask your question, please. Yes. We're way over time. My fault, primarily.
You talked the other day about what would happen in the first weeks. I'm interested in, and I listened to Don McGahn speak in Washington on inauguration, or the day before inauguration, when Donald Trump's first term started, and he said we've got X number of executive orders that are ready to go on the first day. Who's the Don McGahn, since Donald Trump fired him, for Donald Trump, and who's the Don McGahn for Kamala Harris that's going to be in charge of preparing those executive orders?
Those are great questions. Those are great questions.
Kamala Harris, her Tony West may end up being AG. I mean, those are conversations.
He says he's going back to the private sector. Mitch, it's a great question. I'll say that these are two candidates who are both busy and superstitious. And so I don't think they're spending much time. It's one of the biggest problems with our system is that they come in. I think if she's elected and it's a Republican Senate, her bigger problem is going to be getting anybody confirmed, not executive orders. But
I hope that's the case. I wish you'd follow Bill Clinton and triangulate. I think that might be good.
I have a fairly high degree of confidence that whoever wins will make history with the first female White House chief of staff. And I think that person, whoever it is, will play a big role in managing the question of what they do in terms of those Don McGahn type executive orders. In terms of the topics, I'm sure he'll do immigration. I'm sure she'll do reproductive freedom. Beyond that, I have no idea, and I don't think too many people do. And I'm not sure the candidates have thought much about it. And assuming we don't have an overtime election, and assuming we don't have a contested election, which are two massive assumptions, it's still going to be an extremely difficult thing, particularly for her, because she's not been president before, to figure out personnel and policy by January 20th. It's going to be a massive undertaking. Mitch, we're so happy you're here. You reflect your values, which is one of the goals of this program. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Guys, another long episode. Great. A North Carolinian, a Mainer, a Hoosier. That's good. Good. Anything you guys want to say before we close?
Yeah, just a quick shout out. Sunday night, we're doing the live Road to 270, 7 o'clock Eastern on my YouTube channel. I think we're bringing in guests from every state on the ground to talk about early vote, registration, absentees. So if you want to hear directly in the 7 battleground states what's happening, 7 o'clock Sunday night. I'm sure there's a 2-way going on then too, but I'm just saying.
All right, 7 o'clock Sunday on Sean's YouTube channel. Dan, what are you doing this morning?
Oh, well, the rest of the morning, for those who can't get enough of the three of us and what we think, we will all be on Megyn Kelly later today. So you can.
What time is that?
Well, noon. We're on at noon. I'm not sure if what time she's going to go live.
But we're on it. We're on at what time? We're on at noon Eastern?
Yes.
Noon.
Yes.
Noon Eastern. All right. So tune in for that. And then, so that's less than 3 hours from now. And then about 5 hours after we get off Megyn Kelly, I will be back. We took the last couple of Fridays off for a variety of reasons, but tonight it's the inaugural Friday edition of 2-Way Tonight. So please join us 6 o'clock. We'll have some great guests that you'll find out about on Substack and Twitter, aka X, later today. But please, if you have time and inclination, Mitch, I'm looking at you. 6 o'clock Eastern time tonight. Indiana's split, I think, right? You're some Central, you're some Eastern. So you'll figure it out. But it's 6 Eastern. Please join. And then Monday morning, then Sunday there's Sean at 7 Eastern. And then Monday morning, 9 a.m. Eastern time. If it's Monday morning, 9 a.m. Eastern time, that means it's time for another edition of this program, Season 1, Season 2, Episode 11. Have a great day. I'll see you on Megyn Kelly with my colleagues, and then I'll see you solo at 6 o'clock.